I spent most of Psycho Killer trying to figure out what decade I was watching. Not in a nostalgia way, but in a, wait a second, this feels familiar for the wrong reasons kind of way. Because the movie doesn't play like a new release, it plays like something written during that very specific era of serial killer thrillers, the late 90s. Where the killer represented the idea, the investigation represented the philosophy, and the director's job was to translate that into atmosphere. And that's important because Andrew Kevin Walker has always been that kind of writer. He writes concepts first, and when someone filters those concepts visually, it works. In Seven, the dread came from the direction shaping the writing. In Sleepy Hollow, the tone carried the material into mood. So the whole time I kept asking, is this movie unfinished? Or just unfiltered. Then the movie starts shifting identities. At first it wants to be a crime thriller, then it becomes a road movie, then it wants to be a slasher, and by the end it's escalating towards something almost apocalyptic in scale. And none of those are bad ideas individually, but every time the movie changes what it is, the tension resets. You begin building curiosity and then the film switches engines. You begin anticipating danger and then the tone changes. So instead of escalation, you get replacement. That's when I realized I wasn't leaning forward anymore and I was waiting, just waiting for the movie to decide what experience I'm supposed to have. And that leads to the thing most people will call plot holes. But it doesn't feel like logic problems. At first, it feels like convenience. Characters succeed because the movie needs to continue. Information appears exactly when required, and behavior doesn't change after events that should absolutely change behavior. So instead of asking what happens next, you start asking why did that happen like that? And once the switch flips, suspense disappears. Not because nothing is happening, but because nothing is causing anything else. There's also a tone issue that keeps breaking immersion. You get dialogue that sounds less like people and more like explanation. Minor characters delivering lines that feel almost like someone trying to land a moment rather than live in one. And some scenes drift toward comic relief even though the movie isn't a comedy. And it pulls you out every time. A stronger stylist usually trims that, redirects it, lets silence do the work. But here the movie plays everything straight, so you start hearing the screenplay instead of the character. In horror, cannot survive once you hear the writing. And the strangest part is the film thinks it's intense, but it never surprises you. It hits the beats exactly when you expect them. It builds towards moments you've already predicted, and it wants to be disturbing without ever escalating beyond the idea of disturbance. So instead of tension, you get recognition. By the midpoint, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was mapping structure. And once you're mapping structure in a horror movie, the experience turns into an inspection. It almost starts to feel like the accidental spoof of the genre that it's trying to be serious about. Which is honestly makes it an interesting learning movie. There's a filmmaking saying that bad movies teach structure better than good ones. You can see the exact moment stakes vanish, the exact moment consequences disappear, and the exact moment tone collapses. And this movie becomes a checklist of all those moments. Not questions you want answered, questions you care about answering. Not what if, more why would anyone do that? So I kept going back to the same question the entire time. Am I watching a bad movie or a movie from another era released into the wrong one? Because if this had been made when the script was written with a strong stylist shaping it, maybe it becomes a different experience entirely. But as it is now, modern horror audiences are too fluent in the genre. And once they see the machinery, the tension is gone. And for me, the movie never got that back. I appreciate you going on this film journey with me. And as always, be real.